Theme of this event, you know, we are really especially excited to have this event. It's a follow-up to another event we did in June. It was a mentoring opportunities event for firm owners and students and things of that nature at the Apex. How many of you attended that event? Raise your show of hands. It's a good few of you. So this is an exciting follow-up to that event, and it talks about a very important topic, and that's the extreme, and I do mean extreme underrepresentation of minority women in the fields of architecture, engineering, construction, and development. And it's something that we need to continue to have a dialogue on, something that we continue to work to change as a profession. So we're really excited about that. And it's a very important discussion, and this discussion would not have been possible, I believe, not for this woman right here next to me. She was a stalwart in that behalf when we were debating what we wanted to address for our October feature. Many of you know this is an annual event for us. So this woman right here has been amazing. You guys give it up. Give it up for Stephanie. I'm so glad to have you on the board and look forward to many years of working with you in that capacity. So with that said, let me introduce our moderator for tonight, Ms. Stephanie Harris. Stephanie Harris is a registered architect and registered interior designer for the state of Georgia. She works at Macgregor Associates Architects as a project architect. Stephanie's experience ranges from manufacturing facilities to interior design. However, her main focus has been designing data center projects throughout the country. She is a LEED accredited professional in which she has achieved 9 LEED certified core and shell buildings under her advisement. Stephanie also serves as the current secretary for the NOMA Atlanta chapter board. So without much ado, Ms. Stephanie Harris.
Good evening. Tonight we have 4 distinguished women that will speak on the changing leadership roles of women within architecture, construction, and development, addressing the challenges and opportunities women face in positions of authority and revealing their lessons learned, and much more. The National Council of Architecture Registration Board, NCARB, estimates the number of architects licensed in the United States to be 105,847. Though only 17% of all AIA members are female, 10% of all AIA members are minority. However, only 380 members are African American female architects. In April of 1996, at 14 years old, I read an article with my mother that stated there were only 70 registered African American female architects in this country. And at the time, I thought that I would be the 71st person. Personally, as a minority female architect myself, I am truly humbled and honored to share the stage tonight with these women. I have been following one of these ladies since the beginning of my college career. And in June of 2013, I became a registered architect, though not being the 71st person in the country, however, being among the proud 380 practicing today. Through the discussions we are about to have, I hope that we inspire those of you in this room who are considering registration to work towards it. And for those of you who may have thought it to be out of your reach, to understand that if you want to achieve this level of practice, you can. And with that, I introduce to you tonight's panel. First, we have Roberta Washington, FAIA. Roberta has been a principal of Roberta Washington Architects, PC, since 1983. Prior to starting her own firm, Ms. Washington worked for the various New York City architectural firms, and for 4 years worked in the southern African country of Mozambique, where she designed healthcare and educational projects. Next, we have Ivenue Love-Stanley, FAIA. As a pioneer, Ivenue ventured into uncharted waters and paved the way for others. She is an inspiration. In 1977, she became the first African American woman to graduate from Georgia Tech College of Architecture. She was also the first African American woman to be registered as a licensed architect in the South. Next, we have Dina Griffin, AIA, NOMA, IIDA. For more than 20 years, Dina, president of Interactive Design Architects, has blazed a trail for herself and for her profession as a woman of color in a male-dominated field. Her experience includes major municipal, civic, cultural, and commercial office architectural projects. Across IDEA's impressive body of work, none is more recognizable than the new modern wing at the Architect Institute of Chicago. IDEA was chosen as the architect of record to work in collaboration with the world-renowned Renzo Piano Building Workshop. Our final presenter is Patrise Perkins-Hooker. Patrise is the Vice President and General Counsel for the Atlanta Beltline. Prior to joining the Atlanta Beltline, she was a partner with the law firm Hollowell Foster Gibb PC. She also owned her own law firm, Patrise Perkins-Hooker and Associates, for 10 years. She is currently the president of the State Bar of Georgia and a former chair of the Real Property Law section. With our introductions complete, I would like to ask each panelist to come to the stage. And if you could, please hold your questions to the Q&A portion of the presentation. Alrighty, ladies. So I want to kick this off tonight with the first question. When did you first know you wanted to be an architect or a lawyer?
That sounds like a loaded question.
Oh, it's very loaded. Oh, sorry, she was here.
Can everyone hear me okay? I didn't follow that traditional path of discovering this wonderful profession. I was in high school and still didn't do. I know I had a love of astronomy and physics and geography, but I had no idea that I was interested in this profession until, and this is going to be dating me, but we had to choose between industrial education and home economics. And I thought in my ignorance that home economics had to do with baking and learning how to cook. To this day, I still don't know how to cook, but I was like, I wanted nothing to do with it, nothing. So I decided to do industrial education, and I thought I was going to be welding and doing auto shop. I didn't care, I just didn't want to cook. So that year, they decided to do something new, try something new, and do an architectural drafting course. And that was my introduction into the profession, that and watching, I don't know, a lot of you may not know the Brady Bunch. Anybody know the Brady Bunch? Well, Mike Brady was an architect, and that's how I got into it. So I got into school and decided to major in it, but then that's when the walls started going up, the obstacles started going up, because I went into school, I was taking engineering courses, and that's a male-dominated profession. And I had a professor who actually told me that this isn't something I shouldn't even worry about. He was telling the entire class, you need to focus on this for going into architecture. And I said, oh, really? And I was asking him, and he said, no, this doesn't apply to you. And this was before we had even turned in any work. This was like the second week in class. So he was already trying to derail me from the school. But then I had other professors who were welcoming and supportive and very helpful. So that's how my career got nurtured.
Wow, that's good. Ivenue.
Well, I didn't choose the traditional path as well. I have a degree in mathematics, and I worked in my third year, my last year, for a seismographic service company, and I was a drafter, and we would plot or chart for oil. And I finished school in 3 years, and was going to become a civil engineer. And I said, well, that doesn't sound like fun. So I finished school and I applied to Georgia Tech for architecture. I can't explain how it happened or why. Okay. So I called my parents to say I'm going to finish school in 2 weeks and I'm going to start Georgia Tech in 2 weeks. And I informed my parents, and from a very traditional household, I never knew an architect. And my father asked architects in our hometown about it, and he informed them, and they said, oh no, she's gonna be an interior decorator. And my father said, you don't know my daughter. And I came to Georgia Tech, and that's how I fell into the profession. I was always one to fix things up around my house. If an air conditioner was broken, you would find me as out the window and I'm doing that. Or if I needed to, stuff like that. Also, I was Miss Betty Crocker, so we can talk about I was Miss Betty Crocker in 12th grade for cooking and sewing. And I always have a passion for sewing, so that's how I ended up with the profession.
I didn't end up in the profession of architecture, but I did end up in a profession that is pretty unheard of for women to be involved in major development projects. And I came about it through accounting. I was a Georgia Tech undergrad as well, and I decided to go to Emory. I didn't really know exactly what I was going to do, but I knew I was going to try to help people make their dreams come true. And that's how I started out. This was on my application for school years ago. I just wanted to do something to help. And originally it was in accounting, and at the time I went to Emory, I was the only African American in their MBA program for 4 years. And so it was, not only was it a very male-dominated program, it was a program at that time that didn't have anybody else African American. And so that was a challenge. Someone told me that I really needed to pick up legal skills if I was going to be of help to the businesses that I envisioned myself being of help to. And so I went to law school and got a JD MBA simultaneously at Emory. And when I graduated, I went, believe it or not, to public accounting, got a CPA, and then said, okay, what am I going to do now? And so I went to work for Marvin Arrington, who's a prominent attorney here for a number of years and president of the city council. And it was through the work for his clients. Herman Russell was my major client. I brought every project he had out of the ground from 330 McGill all the way till he did the closing on Castleberry Hill. I represented Ivenue, I represented Oye Akinola. I had almost all of the African American architects and design professionals, and I was in-house for Williams, Russell and Johnson, which is a larger engineering and architectural firm. At that time it had had offices in 10 different states and 200 employees. So I used what I had as a skill, and I enjoy helping folks bring together projects and finances, and I understand the bottom line, and I understand how to get folks out of trouble when they're having troubles.
Thank you.
Okay, so I started, I had an interest as a young child to do art. I thought I wanted to be an artist, but I didn't know any artists either, and I talked to the only person I knew really was my art teacher, so I guess I thought I was going to be an art teacher. And we had an assignment in the agency where we had to interview 3 people who had careers that you thought you might want to do. And so I was looking for an artist, couldn't find that. So I interviewed my art teacher, and then I interviewed another art teacher, and it was like I had to find someone different. And so I asked my mom to help me. I was going to even interview her because she worked in a hospital, which was something I didn't want to do, but I was looking for a third person. Anyway, so my mom said, there's a guy next door who's just moved in, who's an architect, and maybe you could go and interview him. And I lived in a neighborhood where there were not a lot of architects, and there were very few black architects, but I lived in the city where A&T College was located at that time, not university. And they had a department of architecture. And so I interviewed this person, and I asked him all about what it was that he did. And he made it sound so exciting and so irresistible. He said that, gosh, you did architecture, yes, you could do art, but it's more than that. People have to live in what you feel, they have to work in it, you can change people's lives. Wow, it sounded all powerful. And so I was hooked. And And from that time on, I started looking it up. I mean, until this day, I never knew if my mom actually knew what architects did, or she just thought it sounded like art or something. I'm not sure. But years later, I saw this. I was visiting my hometown when my mom pointed out this architect, and this was after I got licensed and everything. I ran up to him and said, you know, this is beautiful. What you said to me that day, that I chose architecture, got licensed, and now I'm working at it. And he was like, well, I really didn't take it so serious. I told you what it's written. But it was too late.
Thank you, ladies. It's amazing stories. So we're going to try to move in, and let me know at any point in time if you guys want to kind of bring up anything that you feel like you want to address at tonight's discussion, please do. So in your opinion, what is your definition of design or community development?
That's a leap. That's a big leap from
It's
the
a
first
huge
question.
leap. Yeah, we started off easy.
Yeah.
Now we're getting tough.
I'm always asked this question about design. I think design is somewhat subjective, but the way our firm works and the way I believe design should be approached is your client comes to you with a specific problem or a challenge. What they're doing is basically asking you, how do I do this? How can I achieve this 300,000 square foot building? Or how can I get from the floor up 6 inches or up 6 feet on a ramp? I mean, they're asking you to solve their problems, and that's what I believe design is. It's answering the client's question, how do I blank? You know, how do I achieve this? Whether it's a cover of the magazine, you know, worthy of architecture status image, or a back of house storage facility for the Art Institute of Chicago. Those are the kind of answers we want to provide. That's how we look at design. Design is not something that's to be appreciated by all. It's not meant to be appreciated by the public. But for that particular client, it's important to know what solution is appropriate, and that's our definition of design. And yes, of course, I would like it to be aesthetically pleasing and functional, and for someone to live in and change their lives. But to me, it's about solving a problem.
Now, do you feel like you have to make a statement as a minority female when you're designing? Do you have to come at a different perspective than to stand out a little bit?
I think wow, that threw me for a loop, because I can't help but my perspective, which is a black woman, a black female architect. But again, you're putting yourself in your client's shoes, and they're looking to you for a professional service, and they're looking to you for an answer. So I have to do my best to come up with the best solution for them, because guess what? I want them to hire us again. And I'm not going to make any bones about it. We're in the business to make money and to do our work, and to stay in business. I want repeat clients. I want that type of relationship, which is what we have.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if I answered as a black woman, do I?
Well, just to kind of see how you approach design, and you're saying that you approach it basically to solve the problems that the client has came to you with. So I was just wondering, in any other aspect, do you emphasize any minority female points?
I will say that some clients do. They do come to us sometimes because they have to fulfill in the city of Chicago, there's a 25% minority or 5% MBE quota that they try to achieve, or that a larger firm that's collaborating with us is trying to achieve that. And the first question I ask when I pick up the phone is, are you looking to us just to fulfill this requirement? And if so, this is not a collaboration that we're interested in. And I'll always ask them to please define what you see, how you see we can benefit this project. So if I get the right answer, then we will collaborate. So we just don't collaborate for the sake of it. You know, I did say, yes, we're interested in making money, but not in that way. Yeah.
I understand. Ivenue. I can read the question again.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, I
guess at our firm we see design as a process by which we translate an idea into reality, and that takes many forms. And I guess I was answering your question or listening to the question. We do believe in collaboration, that you have to understand what the problem is and you try to solve it. I would venture to say that you bring your background into what you do. We have some clients who want to have, or who want us to bring into our design Afrocentricity into it. So sometimes you cannot separate the two, or it may be a mandate from them. A lot of the churches that we do a lot of historical background, and we do incorporate that into it. But I don't think because you're a woman that you look at it, well, I'm a woman or an African American woman, and that will somehow color what you do. Because first of all, I mean, we are architects, we're developers, I feel. Although you do, that influence will carry on as you try to solve it. We do believe in collaboration, because if you don't collaborate, I mean, that it has to be buy-in by either the client or the end users. So there's a process by which you do achieve the design.
Thank you. Thank you.
Being a novice here on design, I'm just going to tell you, the rest of the world from the outside perspective looks at design as something that they like. And they say that they want to do a building, it's designed well if they like it. They don't know all of the nuances about what type of awnings, or what type of sconces, or what type of crown moldings, or what type of pillars are outside, or the roof line. And no, we just look, this looks great. But I do know from a development point of view, when you're trying to sell a project or a community or a building, a church, etc., that you always try to make certain that you appease the appetite and the eye of the person who's paying for the project. And so, and so if you have done that, then you have satisfied the design criteria from a development point of view, because the last thing you want is someone to have created an eyesore in your community. So I know that there's a lot of technical answers for design, but from the outside, it's what the actual visual image looks like of whatever it is, be it a soccer field all the way to a church and back.
Okay, I think it's a combination of those things. I think when I think of design, I think it's something that solves a problem. But I also wanted to show that combination of technical and art, and that it is aesthetically satisfying. And of course, that little idea of what is design is a very subjective question. I'm on our city's landmark commission, and every Tuesday the discussion really is about different people's idea of what design is. So you can solve a problem, but when does it fit into a particular neighborhood? When does it work in terms of the aesthetics of the community, or the period that you want to address? So I think there are a lot of aspects of design that go beyond just satisfying the program. And I think that as architects, as individual architects and as firms, that's our job to sort of grapple with those questions and those limits, and to try to come up with something that works for the client, but that also with us as the person leading the team, we put the work into it to make sure that even though the client may not recognize it, that we think that aesthetically it is something that is deserving of being pursued.
Thank you. Thank you. As a minority woman in your respective field, what specific challenges, if any, have you encountered throughout your career? I'll start with you, Patrise.
I am always underestimated. I walk into a room and they don't think that you can think, understand the numbers, or negotiate effectively. Every time that has happened, the other side goes, oh God, what happened to me? And I have negotiated everything from the merger of Clark and Atlanta University. I've negotiated the acquisition of large tracts of property where the developer, the president of the company came down and sat down. We are not going to do affordable housing. I said, you're not going to get my land. Or you're not going to make that. This deal is not going to happen. I said, you don't know what I'm talking. You're not going to get my land. You're not going to browbeat me. I'm not going to be intimidated. You can figure out the percentages. We can figure out the square footages, but you're going to have some affordable housing in this project. And I have gone toe-to-toe with some of the largest institutional developers across this country. For the clients I had in the development field were the Reynoldstown, the Historic District Redevelopment Corporation, SUMEC, which is developing the Mechanicsville area on the other side of 75 from the stadium, and the Fulton Atlanta Coalition, which has a CDC associated with it. And all of them have been very successful projects, but it has taken a hard-nosed approach. But every time someone sees me coming into a room, oh, we got this made. It's okay. Hi.
That's right. That's right. Dina.
Oh, the question.
Yes. Have you had any specific challenges or issues, especially being in Chicago?
Chicago has its own challenges, and being a black female, I know, in this profession, I think I had it early on in school with a professor who was trying to derail me from the profession. I had it briefly in my first contract or construction meeting when I went on site, and I was waiting for. I was sitting around and I said, well, what are we waiting for? And they said, we're waiting for the architect to show up. And I said, well, here I am. And but that, I really haven't, this profession has been very good to me. And I want it to be good for everybody else too. Yes, we have challenges as a firm, as a small business in the city. And yeah, I'm pretty sure that there might be some issues because of who I am, but it's not been overt. Good.
Roberta.
I think following up on this idea of being the woman in charge of the room, my very first project, my large project, my first one was a hospital dialysis clinic that I had won through the state through the process of doing proposals. And I went to a meeting, and the meeting was like 30 doctors and mostly administrators and doctors were sitting around the table with the one person from the state office who was in charge of the construction. And it was similar in terms of not being recognized. So I'm sitting there, and the one of the doctors says, well, we need to start the meeting. Where's the architect? And the person from the state says, she's here. Is this the architect? And he says, no, but she works for the architect. No, she's not. But the architect is doing our project. Has to be someone who understands hospitals and health. He says she has a degree in hospital design. It's like, well, how does this happen?
Right.
But as time went on, I think that being female and also being a minority, that to work, you really can't even think about what people are saying or how they feel. Right. Because if you take that into consideration, you would just be frozen. Right. You wouldn't be able to move. So I can't at that moment internalize what's going on. I just do what I think I'm supposed to do, and I work. So by the time we actually finished the process, I was really very good friends with that doctor who had first asked, "Where is the architect?" And I think it is because as women and black folks in architecture or in any profession, we do what it is that we're required by the profession to do and try to do it the best that we can. And even though we know that it's not a level playing field and that it's not always people who are in favor of us getting over and doing what we want to do, that we understand that we have to do what we're supposed to do because that's the only thing that makes it play.
Right. Right. Show and prove. Said showing and proving,
Yeah.
basically. Yeah. Ivenue. Do you have any thoughts?
Well, I guess I'm a little different. I think my first, I had many challenges. During my third year at Millsaps College, where I got received my degree in mathematics, there were 2 women who worked there, and we had to wear miniskirts. That was the protocol. That was the dress. And I needed a job, so I wore this miniskirt that was up to my butt. So that was the first one. And Roberta was a good question, a good point that, as women, and my husband and I, we practiced together, and we did what we had to do, but I have had some challenges. My background is transit. I had cut my hair very short one time, and I walked into, I guess my boss had passed me. He was very, very short, shorter than Roberta. And he passed by and he said, David, you look like a dyke. Oh. And this is the head of the company, right? And I said, okay, now what's my response? And I said, now, this is my boss. He signed my paycheck. He was over the entire company. This is Parsons-Brinckerhoff Tutor, a very large entity. And I said, okay, now think about this now as I compose myself. And I said, well, and I can't tell you his name. And I said, well, Mr. So-and-so, if you were not my boss, I would tell you to go to hell. But since you are my boss, I can't tell you that.
Good response.
People, let me see, another instance, I've had to deal with this.
Right.
I am the peacemaker, or people see me as the peacemaker, so even we were doing a job in South Africa, and so it's just not, a black-white thing. We were doing work in South Africa, and our associate firm there didn't respect me because I was a woman. And so I couldn't even deal with him on the project. But as Roberta said, you have to rise above it. You have a job to do. I understand fully that I have a client.
Right.
And my first responsibility is to produce a great job and be responsive and responsible to my client.
Yeah, this is amazing. Do you ladies feel that there is enough opportunities for minority women looking to break into this industry? Roberta, I'm sorry.
No, opportunity is because that really is the key to achieving some of the things that people want to do, especially in a profession like architecture. So you can have ambition, you can work really hard, but it's that whole question of opportunity to move to another
Right.
level that is key. And I think that when I started my firm, I started the firm not because I wanted to start a firm. Actually, I did not want to start a firm. What I really wanted was to be an associate in somebody else's firm. But I was working in a time when there weren't a lot of women. But more women came on as time went on, and there weren't a lot of black folks working in the office that I was working in. But I was a really hard worker, and I wanted to, wanted to do the best I could and whatever. But I also wanted to progress, and I wanted to move up. And I think that it was not seeing those kinds of opportunities that made me think I really had to have a firm of my own. It wasn't that I knew I could be successful at it. It was just the idea that I might as well be spending my energy and my time working to build something of my own as to give it away to someone else without being recognized. And then once in business, I think it was it's also the lack of opportunities that sometimes, in terms of getting projects and being able to do the kinds of projects that I think that we should do, that you can realize that it's all about opportunities, and that these, when you get an opportunity, then you can prove you can do it. If you can do something really well, but you never get an opportunity to show it, then you're sort of stymied.
Right.
And I see that still happening. So I think that we haven't completely gotten rid of all the roadblocks in terms of what women, black folks want when they're looking for a profession in architecture. I think
You have any thoughts, Dina?
No, those are great, great comments. I think this is going to tie into my advice to a lot of people, not just students, but that idea of opportunity. It's also knowing when. I mean, making a jump, making a leap, making a change is very scary. Being in the comfort of a large firm and having them nurture you and having the ancillary support is just completely invaluable. And then I get an opportunity to come work at an 8-person firm with no ancillary support. Whoa, by the way, you might be running this in a few years. And that was an opportunity that scared the heck out of me. But it's being presented, and I needed to know what to do about that, and I had to weigh those things. I even had to weigh the idea of the fact that I don't have a business degree, and I'm running a business. I mean, and I'm still, that's very frightening in and of itself, but learning, and I'd like to ask you about that too, about when you thought about starting your own firm, did that idea come into your head? Wait a minute, who's going to run the business side of it? Who's going to do this? Because a lot of architects start their own firm and that's it.
in some ways, because I had not thought about all of the things that could go wrong or that I should have known. I didn't realize all of the things I should have known, you know. And I went into business actually with a friend who had originally was a guy who was an associate in another larger firm, which lasted for a couple of years or so. But then it was sort of on your own. And I took a course once after I'd been in business for about 5 years. I guess I took a course for women entrepreneurs. And that course was the scariest thing ever because it told you all of the things that could happen, that could go wrong, the things that you should have known. And just as a little example, there was the finance portion where the accountant was saying, explaining how you should be running your accounting section. And one of the things he said was, you know that the person who writes your check should never open your mail. And I was like, oh, no, my office is really small, so I have to do that. You know, the person who writes that. No, you can't, it's a rule. You don't do that. That's another no. And it was like, then only after that I realized that the person who was doing it was also ciphering off money for herself. But I had never I didn't realize that there were rules that you had to, just simple things that have to do with business and not architecture or things that can really just pull you down. You know? So I think that it's really important for people to know more about business or to align themselves once, if they start a firm, to have an advisor who knows something more about business than you do. Because I studied architecture.
Right.
And I opened the business because I think I wanted to do architecture, not because really it wasn't so much that I was thinking about having a business. It was just that I thought that having a business was a means to doing what I like to do, which was to design. But in fact, you really need to understand business to have a business and figure out a way to do the business and to do your architecture.
That's the reason I was late in answering all of your emails.
You're running a business, I totally understand. Thank you.
Oh, I think in our practice, as it relates to opportunities, I don't think that there are enough. And I think it's incumbent upon all of us who have our firms to have mentees who we can explain and show and help them through as we did not have people to help us to navigate through, how to set up your accounting systems, get a good attorney, all the things that you have to do to have a successful practice. But I do not think that there are enough opportunities right now. I think that the climate is such that it's prime time for young people who are ready to take the leap, because of the economy and how, where we are in terms of jobs or like getting jobs. But I think that we should reach out. I know I see a few of my young proteges here who we have worked under or who have worked under us. So you sort of have to avail yourself to the opportunity and don't be afraid to take that leap. I don't know if there's ever a good chance to take the leap. I don't think that there is. But we still have challenges trying to get the opportunity. We still have challenges still after being in business for 35 years. We tell people we didn't get our first, we were not awarded our first job with the city of Atlanta for over 20 years in being in business. So there's still issues and there's still some roadblocks.
I agree that there are tremendous roadblocks, obstacles, and lack of opportunity. But what I want to focus on is the positive. If you know somebody who's running a project, a job, a city, a state agency, then make it your business to talk to that person, develop a relationship with that person, tell them what you do, get them interested in you, and then you create your own opportunities. It may not be this year, it may not be next, but if you start out trying to establish a relationship with someone based upon you demonstrating your credentials, your experience, your projects, eventually that type of mining will pay off. Unlike probably Avenia's advice, I would encourage those of you who are young and new and no experience, don't go out young, because it's fraught with all types of risks. This is the attorney. All types of risks and liability. And if you do not know that you need insurance, if you do not know that you need to maintain files, both paper copies as well as electronic copies of all communications from your clients associated with the file, you don't know how to survive. And you will be an easy prey. They won't pay you. You're going to court and someone says, well, what you got is records to document you're supposed to get paid. Well, I did the work and I went to meetings, but do you have a contract? You learn those things not here in school. You learn those things on the job in a firm. And unfortunately, with the economy and the downturn in the economy, it makes it difficult for firms to hire a lot of people or to absorb all the new graduates. But the system of architecture, just like the system of medicine, and really, in all honesty, the system of law was designed for people to apprentice, to learn on the job how to be an expert. And if you just jump out there on faith, you will fall down the edge of the cliff. 9 out of 10 folks, somebody will make it. But it's a lot harder than just, starting to work for somebody, a governmental agency, some other firms taking a little less money but learning experience, techniques, procedures. So with regard to your opportunities this year, I think that you can create some over time. Just don't think that they materialize instantly. And with everything that people of color do, it is just not a level playing field. With everything that women do, it is just not a level playing field. And you can be on the sidelines complaining, moping, and about it's not. Or you just go into the game, put it on your arm, and keep training.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I add one more thing
Yes,
about
ma'am.
opportunity? NOMA Atlanta, like all of you are here because of NOMA Atlanta. I was offered this position to come to this small firm because I was speaking as president of INOMA, which is the Illinois chapter in Chicago. And those types of events are very important, especially when you're starting out. Not just when you're starting out, throughout your entire career. And you'll notice too that when people attend events, they start off young. They're here for a lot of events, and then all of a sudden you don't see them for years and years and years. And it's because you're challenged to find the time to do this. That's when you start writing checks to support, that you pay your dues, but you're not really doing FaceTime. And one of the ways that I'm hopeful to create opportunities for others is to speak at schools. I may not be able to attend all conferences. I may not be able to do it at that moment, but speaking at schools is very important because, all of this advice is so helpful for anybody, any stage in their career, but especially when you're starting out. And the opportunity that NOMA presents, I think, is something to be valued and cherished.
Thank you.
I would just like to add that there have been at least 4 have their firms, you know. But 3 of them, I knew through NOMA. I know. And I think that sometimes you have to do what you can to create your own opportunities or to try to change the paradigm. And I think that giving things time, coming out, meeting, going to those meetings, going to events, and meeting people, because you never know when it comes back around, when those people are in a position that they can say something that helps you get a job or give you a job. And I think you have to make those personal connections count.
Also, if I could add, I feel that I think as a minority community, we don't volunteer our services enough. And you really have to find a passion where you can volunteer time into the community. So it goes beyond NOMA to a broader community. And those are the connections as well that will help you to get a leg up, I think.
And I think that's almost a given. It's like that's the extension of it, because it may not be with NOMA. It could be with a non-organization. It could be, I spoke at a place on the south side of Chicago that they provide breakfast for seniors or something. It was a community group that had nothing to do with architecture, but they made it so, and they invited me there to speak because guess what? They were curious about what building is that on 79th and the Dan Ryan Expressway, and so they invited an architect, and from there I got this connection with this community group. So putting your tentacles out where you can, where you're comfortable, where your passions lie, is important.
Thank you, ladies. So what do you feel has been your greatest career accomplishment? Patrise.
President of the 46,000 lawyers in Georgia.
Okay,
Pretty high up there. And that's, for those of you who don't know, our state bar races are elective. And there are a lot of lawyers outside of Atlanta. And there are very few lawyers who look like me. And so it is truly an honor to be recognized by your peers and being given an opportunity to lead the organization that regulates the practice of law when you are such a small fractional percentage of the people who practice law in Georgia. So that means you had to do something else besides just be black. And so I'm really very glad for the opportunity, but that's my highest.
Wow, congratulations. Roberta.
Accomplishments. I think that these are a couple of different kinds of accomplishments. One, I think, is just to have survived in business for this much of town with work, and actually have work most of the time, and to make a business out of something that could have maybe not been a business. That maybe that is a type of accomplishment. I think others could be some of the projects that we did, that we only did because we, for whatever reason, got an opportunity to do something that we might not have if we hadn't had certain connections or been at the right place at the right time. So I think that achievement is sometimes creating your own luck, your own opportunities. I think it is the work that I've done with mentees in our firm and being able to work with other organizations, doing things that I have an interest in beyond architecture.
Thank you. Ivenue.
I think I was pondering this question. As Roberta said, that there are many levels of accomplishments, and we can all toot our own horns in terms of where we are in the profession and how we got here and what we've done. Coming from a very different background, I think one of my greatest accomplishments has been able to leverage or to take architecture outside of the normal realm of practice and to take it to a broader community and really help those who don't have a voice, to go into communities, to do some free service for some zoning, or to help people get an historic designation you know, or to, after we built a library or a new school, to set up a Boy Scout program. You know, so I think I would look at that as one of my greatest accomplishments, just to take it outside of that to a broader community.
Thank you. Sir. Dina.
I'm hopeful that we all continue to have greatest. I will have more of these, but you guys resonated. A few things you said resonated with me. One of them was, and I think I was sharing this during the mingling, that we used to do. Someone asked, "What type of projects do you do?" I said, "Well, it's easier to say what we don't do," and that's single-family residential or residential. Period.
Right.
We used to do a lot of multi-unit residential housing for the physically disabled, senior citizens. And those were projects that I started on when I came to interactive design. And one of the things that I was passionate about was making sure that when this person came to their apartment and came to their building, that they didn't think that they were coming to an institution, but to their home. And I held true to my promise to deliver this to them by way of making sure that their finishes didn't get value engineered out of the project, because I selected some pretty expensive finishes. And I communicated this with Catholic Charities of Chicago and with HUD, who was financing it. And I said, it's very important to keep this element of the project in. And getting that gratitude on opening day about how grateful they were that their apartment was their home, and they felt like one woman said, and for those of you who don't know, she said, "I feel like I live on North Michigan Avenue." Well, North Michigan Avenue in Chicago is along the lake. On the north side, north of downtown, it's kind of a ritzy area. And she said, "I feel like I'm in that type of space," and thank you. So that type of, not that you do it to get that,
Right.
but when you do get that level of appreciation, it feels like you've just achieved the greatest thing in life.
Yeah.
And I want to keep achieving those. Those moments are very special, and that's why we're in the business, to make their environment beautiful.
Thank you. So, ladies, what advice do you have for other young designers and those who are minorities in the A&E industry? Like, they're trying to get started, they're still in school, a lot of these people. How do you want to keep them motivated and get registered and get licensed and stay?
Get me started on this.
Well, let's get started. That's what we're here for. Yeah, so let's start with you then, Dina.
I think licensure is very important. You're not an architect without that piece of paper. And I would like to be more like the legal profession or the medical profession, where it's an assumption, it's a natural progression. You go to school, then you get you apprentice or not, and then you get your license. That's the goal, and that's the way we, from the inside, will support and buttress our profession, so that the public still knows the value of this profession. They're coming to us for a service, and they deserve that professional level of service. And I just want to support that. But that advice is, it doesn't really ring in too many people's ears if the process is prohibitive, if there are obstacles in the way. I sit on, as a member of the Illinois Architects Licensing Board, we are a member board of NCARB. And I do know that NCARB is making changes to make that process more accessible, more attainable. Especially with in regards to when you can take the exam, and now how that exam is being not being administered, but how it's being organized so that it's concurrent with where you are in your path to licensure. But I think it's very important that we support that within and without, and doing what we can as firm owners to allow people to take that time to study for it, and to even reimburse them for getting their license. We have, we pay for their once they get the license, you pay for their renewal. We pay for a lot of things because we're supporting their career. We want architects working for us. In our firm, we have 12 people. Only one is a non-technical staff. He's our graphics person, business development person. And then there's only one other person who doesn't have their license, and he just finished school, and he's on his IDP track. But that's because we also have a lot of older people in our office, and we're trying to bring in younger people. So that dynamic will change, but the desire to get the license will be there. The support to get the license will be there. And then any advice I would give to all of you out there, you're making choices out there. People are making choices when to say no, how to balance life, taking advantage of the opportunities. But be in control of your career. If you feel that you're not getting the experience that you think you should be getting, or you're not doing things that you want to do, or that may be beneficial to you, talk to your superiors, talk to people who are in your firm, if you're in a large firm. Help create opportunities for yourself. I mean, I had to do that in guiding my career. I was very good at working on computers, and I was stuck working on computers. And I didn't know how a building was being put together out in the field for an incredible international airport in Chicago. And I went to my boss and said, I want to work out in the field. I don't want to touch the computer. Can you make that happen? And he said, I will do my best. And that was a Friday. On Monday, I was put out in the field. So yes, it may not be that easy, but all I'm saying is you've got to put it out there. You have to ask the question.
I completely agree about the licensure. That is important. I see too many young adults and some older people who have not gotten to the point of passing the exam, and they get discouraged. I think we make it too easy right now of other allied professions in this profession. I think it's too easy to say, okay, fine, I'm going to get my 4-year degree, and I'm not going to go and get my master's degree, and go into program management, sorry, or to go into imaging design or whatever. You have to stay the course. And you have to have people to respect you as an architect. If you're not licensed, you're not an architect. And I think that too often we find people who, I can build your house, or I can design your house. And so we sort of do it to ourselves, where we don't put enough credence on what we are and who we are. Stay the course. As Dina said, if you're in a job and you're not getting the experience, say, I can do more, but it's going to be up on you. Mm-hmm. It's going to be on you to say, I don't want to do this. Give me something else to do. Right. I know in our office we have a very extensive library, and we tell people every week, go check out a book on a new designer. Mm-hmm. Come back and report on it. Don't get discouraged. And be ready for be ready for the opportunity. As we talk about, getting the opportunity, and so create your own, and be ready when the opportunity comes. Be ready to take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I would tell young people, be prepared, be committed, and be dedicated to being the best that you can be. Average does not give you the options in life that you want. So you try to be better than average, and try to be the best that you can be. And if you try to do that, Dr. Mays said a long time ago, if you shoot for the stars, you may not make those stars, but you may land on the moon. But if you don't shoot for the stars, you won't even leave the atmosphere. And that's why I tell all young people, whatever you want to do, be the best at it. And let me tell you what happens as a result of that drive, commitment, dedication, and preparation to your task. Other people pay attention. Other people notice. Other people remember you. Other people say, I need so-and-so, but there was somebody back there who worked really hard and, struggled a lot, but overcame a lot, and I really admire that person. You're creating a reputation day by day. So just try to remember to remember that. It's not something you can pick up and put down from time to time when you don't want it.
I think that what we're saying here about young people persevering is important. interested in getting licensed. And there are some reasons, I'm not saying I know why, but I was reading a survey that talked about how there are people who are in a position where they could start doing the exam, but who don't see what they get out of having the license. And I think that somehow it was clearer maybe 15 or 20 years ago what you could get out of it, meaning that you had the opportunity to have your own business, but you also got a measure of more respect in the company. And I think that the business model has changed over time, and that now it's not so much that you graduate and start your own firms easily, and so you're one of several firms that are new every year, but because now firms do get bought out and are bigger, and it's not clear that the world is going towards maintaining smaller firms. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I think that we can encourage people to do their license, but I think we also need to look at what is it that is missing in terms of being able to translate the value of the license. So you're not, if you're in a big company, does it mean that you will get to do something that you can't do now? I'm thinking that people are asking other questions about.
And I heard
license.
that. I heard that this evening.
Do you get more money the day you get licensed? Do you?
You shouldn't.
It's not automatically, but I'm just saying what. So I think that people who choose architecture choose it obviously not for the money. You choose it because it's something that you're really interested in doing. You feel it's you. It expresses you. And so if you want to do it, then you'll do it and you'll find a way to do it. But I also think that we need to look at the importance of being licensed and address what the issues are that prevent more women from being licensed, because in that survey I saw, it was saying that more women find less reason to be licensed than men. And I think that is true also for minorities, that they're saying, so what is it at the end? And somehow we need to work on changing that.
And for myself, just as someone who recently got licensed last year, it was hard. It was really, really tough. It took me 3 years to get registered as architect. And I wanted to quit, but because I got laid off for like 1.5 years. But it took me like a couple of months to kind of get motivated again. And then I ended up passing 4 other exams being unemployed. So it's like you just gotta kind of stick with it, get over the hump. You will fail. It will be difficult, but you can get it done, and it's not about, to me, it wasn't about the time, how long it was gonna take. I just knew I was gonna do it. I said, I don't care if I fail the same test 6 times, I'm gonna get this done. And luckily I was able to get it done in the 3 years.
I see it as sort of the conclusion of all of that education that you got. It's sort of what it's saying that it was because you wanted to become an architect. It wasn't because you designer, whatever. You wanted to be an architect at some point, and it's important to keep your focus. Right.
I think there has to be passion for it, and I think it's too easy not to have that passion. I think we also, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, find someone who can help you. You can find someone who can keep you motivated. Find your cheerleader.
Right.
I think that's critical. And don't be afraid to ask someone to be your cheerleader. Someone who you can call on when you do get discouraged, or someone who can advise you along the path.
So now we would like to open it up to the audience for any questions at this time.
First of all, I want to say this panel right here represents so much richness, the struggle, the triumphs, the challenges. Thank you all so much for being here. I did not want to miss this at all. I wanted to thank Roberta. I met you over 20 years ago at a design charrette while I was a student at FAMU. And when I saw you, you were the first person that I saw that looked like me. And I said to myself, I can do this. Ivenue, you were a inspiration to me. I feel like I need to say this. You were my mentor and encouraged me, that champion, that cheerleader that you were just talking about. You did that for me. And shortly after I finished up my IDP, the paperwork, Ivenue said, I'm going to stay on you until you get this done, or else we're just going to get this done. I had a small child at the time. I owe it so much to you for me continuing and finishing the race and getting my registration. So with all that being said, I'm very nervous, trying not to get emotional. The question I have for you is, in spite of the challenges, in spite of the struggles, what is the one thing that has kept you in the race and kept you moving forward?
I guess one thing for me, my partner is one. He's my biggest cheerleader. But I don't know, when you talk about your buildings that you design, and at the end of the day, we had a young boy, and we have kids in our office all the time. We had a young boy who wrote me a letter, a young little boy, and the letter said he was thanking me for coming to spend a week in our office. And he said, I want to be like you when I grow up, except I want to be a man. And those are the little things that keep me going, knowing that, that the building that I design is going to make some person happy when they come in and feel good about the space, or, that I've influenced somebody or I've made a difference. That is what keeps me going at the end of the day. And it's not about the money, as you know, as Roberta said, that this is not about money. I would have gone into medicine years ago. But it's those little things that no one knows except you.
Go ahead. You like to go?
Well, I think that for me is, it's actually I think sometimes it's just the clients and meeting people who we're working with in that interaction. And a lot of the clients, because of the types of projects that we do, are people in urban centers and lower income, and also a lot of Black residents. We do work for people who, because we started off with housing for homeless groups, and did a lot of work for mental health issues and things like that. So I think that the clients, and what I sort of noticed too is that a lot of our private clients, which we don't have a lot, but a lot of our private clients are Black women who find us, and I think that they're like looking for someone from the community who looks like them to represent them and to work with them, and they're happy, and I'm happy to be able to be there to work with them. So I think that sometimes it's the clients that make it like so that you can't stop and you're inspired by what they're seeing and what they're saying about what they're doing too. And I think on the other hand, it's about seeing what happens to some of the people who pass through our office and being involved with their lives and thinking that done something to maybe inspire them or to push them in that direction. And just one other thing, I think that what has inspired me is some of the, like in the last 10 years, I've done research on Black women in architecture, sort of the history of Black women in architecture, which, although it's not widely known, actually started before Norman Scholar. And so just to know about the fact that there were women Black women who were working in the 40s, 1940s, 42, 44, 48, who got licensed and who were looking to do architecture when it must have been even more difficult. And so I think I'm inspired sometimes to know about people who came before.
I think I mentioned one of them, which is the gratitude expressed by the users of some of our projects. Like Roberta said, when clients give you positive feedback and they show their appreciation, not just by paying you, but by actually saying, we appreciate what you have done for us and we value your services. But it's also going to speak at schools. I did go to FAMU, but I also went to Tuskegee, and there was a young woman there who during the Q&A, she was quiet, but she wasn't leaving. A lot of people had started to leave. And I was talking to her very outgoing friend, and who was just gregarious and asking me all sorts of questions. Like, I know I'm not going to get this opportunity, so I'm going to ask you every single thing that I ever wanted to ask a black female architect. And her friend she just tugged me and she said, "Can I talk to you in private after this?" And that was her hushed tone, and I said yes. And I won't tell you her story, just in a nutshell. I said, step into my office, which was the auditorium seating over there, and she told me with tears in her eyes that she was about to quit school. She was a second-year student, and she said, I can't see the way others see. I can't visualize the way others visualize. And I said, well, tell me what problems you're having. And then I tried to help her spatially see things, and I said, but wait a second, what about your advisor? What about your professors? She said, oh, they don't pay attention to me because I'm not as good as the other students. And she said, I'm thinking about quitting. I said, before you quit, I said, I want you to use your support network immediately around you. And I said, now that includes me. But I said, your friend is an excellent artist. She's proving to be an excellent architecture student. She can visualize. I said, are you close enough with her that you can share this with her? She said, yes. And I said, ask her to help you. This student is now about to graduate because she stayed in it. She emailed me, we talked on the phone, she used her network of friends, and she turned that into not just a problem or a challenge for her professors or the school to solve. She looked at her peers who were doing well, and her peers were big enough and wonderful enough people to share their knowledge with her, and now she's matriculating through the program. Those are the kinds of things. So it's not just one thing, it's all of those things that keep me going. And being able to pay all my staff with bonuses at the end of the year.
Question over here.
I was making an observation that 90% of the answers that you gave, if it had been a black male panel, would have been the same answers. Is that my question becomes, I guess, in an editorial too, is maybe it's generation, because as you watch the Zaha influence in architectural design, the young women I'm sure being influenced by, the question is whether or not gender affects design outcome. And I was thinking, in my style, I deal with racialized. What's the impact of race in design outcome? Is that revisiting that question, the Zaha influence in terms of the future of women, African American women in design, or exploring even in gender preference. There's something called fag space, great book, called fag space, or racialized space, and all those issues being addressed in academia these days. Is that I was somewhat, I guess, disappointed in the answers that you were not pursuing, or there is no pursuit of how gender, particularly Afrocentric gender, influences design outcome.
I think it was a question. The question. He was just saying revisit the question about how one of your first questions. Yes.
Your background influence the type of design.
Right now, because of him, I've got to rethink this. But it's not. I don't think I'm going to give you the answer. Mine really isn't going to change because I haven't looked at it in that way. I don't know if anyone.
I think that is a question, something that I like looked at and identified.
As something that Black architects and female architects have to, or should address at some point. And I guess I would say that the first, my first instance of thinking about how race and gender affect architecture results started when I started looking at the question of Afrocentric design and what it meant. And I guess I would have to say that I have ventured more in terms of incorporating maybe what could be considered aspects or at least references to Afrocentric ideas in design than as a woman, which is not to say that there are not specific types of elements of design that are.
Do you not think that Zaha has feminized, not in a negative sense of the word feminized, but brought her gender into form?
But just, yes, and I think, well, I guess what I think is that I think that there are certain things that you can demonstrate in certain types of projects. And I think if I had certain kinds of projects that would allow me to freely associate and express what I see as is probably, but you see, I'm not sure I would think that if I were expressing it, it was so much just a female aspect. I think it comes from who you are, so it would be probably Black female. But that there is a way that you can incorporate whatever your design references are. And I think that everybody's references are based on who they are, you know? I mean, we've had architects, Black architects, who looked at Afrocentric design. We've had several, right? You have David Hughes and Jack Travers and even Melvin Mitchell in his book about Black architects talks about how influences of Africa, for instance, are evident in designs, but not just evident in designs by Black folks, how they can be co-opted by other people who understand the references. I think then what those architects, I think what Melvin Mitchell and others have said though, is that if you are designing it, if it's a design by a Black male, then it is by definition based on that person's culture. So whatever they want to say is Afrocentric, you have to accept that it is because they're doing it. But if you do that, then it's not something, then you're saying that Afrocentric design isn't something that is only done by Black folks. You know, I went to a show about Afrocentric design, and half of the architects were white architects who were doing it, right? And this was like someone was showing modern architecture in Africa, right, which had African references, but it wasn't done by Black architects.
I think Craig Wilkins would suggest that both deconstructive architecture is Afrocentric.
Yeah, well, that is what is modern. Anyway, so I guess I think that it's something that we're still looking at, and it's not that we don't, at least that is not something that I don't think about, but I guess I think that it's important to figure out, you know, for other people to acknowledge that you're doing that, it needs to be at least a project of a certain type. And actually, one of the buildings that I did, that apartment building, we do have references, Afrocentric references, many in that building. But I don't think that we're to the point where the whole building yet we can have a client who just lets us do exactly the expression that we want. So that's it.
Thank you.
First, I really want to thank you for this opportunity. This has been so inspiring to me as an undergraduate. My question is, you kind of answered this in a sense, but I just want to dig further into this. How can we as women support each other, not just in the professional level, but also as students kind of beginning the journey?
As students beginning the journey,
The only thing I can think of, again, being proactive and me going to schools and making myself available, whether you've designated me as your mentor, I can be a resource, and that's what I tell everyone. When I was coming up in school, I didn't have any of these panel discussions. I didn't have anybody come to University of Illinois at Champaign and say, this is a career that you can have. It was just something that I did on my own. It was almost self-guided, but it would have been very helpful to be able to reach out to someone. And I think being proactive, that same woman, the same student who is at Tuskegee, who is now in her 3rd year, or about to graduate, sorry, she blows up my email almost as much as this one here. And because I pay attention to her, and I do get to her when I can. I have to prioritize sometimes, but she's got that conduit, and then I can connect her to other people. But if asking questions and just simply, if something comes into your mind and you're like, I wonder how I could do this, send me an email and ask me, or call me on my mobile, text me, do something. And that's the way I connect with students, and that's the way that I've been able to help. I don't know, I haven't been able to participate much in the student organizations as much as I would like, but I like to do the one-on-one and make myself available.
But I also think that students can help each other.
As I said, yeah.
And so at Howard, when I was there, I guess there were 8 women. We started in a class of 50, and there were 8 women. And I think that one of the things that helped me to get through is that the women actually supported each other. I don't think we called it, we didn't know what we were doing so much, but we knew that we needed to talk to each other outside of the regular class, that there were things that we could say to each other. We could say that we didn't understand something quite so well, and admit it in front of other women who were, I think, really were very responsive and supportive and helped a lot. I mean, there were also guys who helped too. We like to say that because, but I think that there are environments where you have to create your own support group, and that maybe college is one of them. So.
Hi, my name is Letitia. I'm on the NOMA board as well, and I wanted to thank you all for coming. And I guess my question is, you all are very high up in your career, very, well pronounced. I am licensed, so I can say I'm an architect. But my question is kind of different. Do you feel that having the high positions that you have, did that interfere with your balanced life of being a wife and or a mother? I mean, it's kind of weird, but I don't know if you can go high in our career and still, be that attentive mother. Like I know some women in our career who are high up, but they had nannies and they weren't there for their children. I want that balance. I want to be able to succeed in my career, but at the same time, succeed in personal life.
I want you to know the first statement that you made that I want to just challenge you on is those people had nannies. That's how you get the balance. You cannot duplicate yourself 24 hours a day. I mean, that's all you got. And so you get help. You have people who come in and help with the cleaning, and you have people who help with the cooking, and you have people who help with the children that may be the same person. But what you try to do, I mean, I've been married for 35 years. I have 2 grown children and 8 grandchildren. And they didn't have nannies, but we did have, when they were smaller and under the age of 2, there was a babysitter who stayed with the baby because I didn't want them to go to daycare because too many germs. And I wanted to get them better immunization, better immune system. But after they got past 2, they were able to get into school. But you have to use your network. Women, we are the worst in the world to say, I need help. And this young lady mentioned that when you were an undergraduate, it is okay to turn around to another woman and say, can you help me? I want to talk about this. Let's go to dinner. Let's go to lunch. Let's go get a drink. I need some help. And it's their problem if they are not reciprocating when asked. But it's okay for you to ask. And so, yes, you can be married. Yes, you can be respected in your marriage. Yes, you can have a family. Yes, you can have a successful career, but you're going to get the nanny.
Thank you guys for coming. It's just been life-changing for me, having worked with Roberta on a board when I was in college. It changed my life, and working alongside Ivenue and also for a woman architect here in Atlanta. It's just been amazing in helping me become licensed and be successful in my career. But I guess the question I have for you all is, what's that one piece of advice, based on the experience that you all had over these years, that you would give a woman in architecture and, in your field? What would be the advice that you would give us? The one piece of advice that you've learned and gained?
Why does it have to be one piece? Can't you just keep
I'll take me. I just didn't want to be greedy. I'll take as much as you like.
learn when to say no, because that goes to your striking that right balance with family and career. I couldn't answer that question, the previous question, because I don't have kids. I have dogs. And yes, I was married, but balancing that was very easy because he was also an architect. So that's the first thing. Don't marry an architect. But learning when to say no, because you do feel like you, number one, you do want to try to do it all, and you're trying to also, doing it all also means you have an obligation and responsibility. So, I participate on many boards, and I actually have to call those boards and say, wait a minute, I'm spreading myself so thin that I'm of no value to this board. I need to cut down my activities or even remove myself from the board because I am running a firm, and that's a priority for me. But as I was telling you guys, I have to make time for myself, and I play tennis. That's my drug of choice. And for 7 years, I stopped playing tennis, something I just loved doing with all my heart. I stopped doing it because I was trying to run this business. And I realized, wait a second, you got to put yourself first so that you can be there for every tentacle that's pulling at you from all directions. So there was a lot of the one things. Don't say, learn when to say no, take care of yourself, and keep asking questions and making sure you guide your career, guide what you're doing. I've heard many people say tonight different things that they're doing or that they want to do, but just trying to find that balance was a prominent question tonight. And me too. I'm growling too. Okay, I'll let others answer.
I know with me, when I first started out in the profession, I'm very competitive. And when you work in an all-male environment, as I did, it's like I always have to prove something, but you really don't. Women are better architects, I think. We bring so much more to the profession. Sorry, guys, but one regret I have is that in trying to prove yourself and in terms of trying to stay on the same field, sometimes my responses have not been the best. So always guard, always weigh what you say, because you don't want to burn a bridge. So be careful what you say, because sometimes you have to come back and eat the words. And I've had mine just once, and once was too many.
I think we've given you a lot of one-liners on things to do and things to focus on. I want to go back to something Dina said, and that is make certain that you follow up on your passion as you go through your career. She said that she had given up on tennis. You have to do something that you really enjoy doing in order to keep yourself sane when you're pulled at so many different directions. So I think that's a good thing to remember. Just keep yourself first, but also find something that you're passionate about and stay with it.
I got this one. Okay, so I'm not going to try to give better or more advice. I'm going to go with that advice. But one of the things I think I do want to say is just listening to the gentleman's question in the back about how he doesn't think the panel is, we could be men. I would like to say that, you know, one of the things maybe we didn't bring out enough is that what some of those challenges that women have, and just talking about the family. Somehow, if you're an architect and you're a male and have a family, this ceases to be the challenge primarily. You know, maybe some individual cases, but for women, it almost always is part of the challenge of the profession. You know, and being female has meant that for most women who work in corporations, and maybe it's changed lately, but up until now, there's been a real salary difference even, so that your style of living, your lifestyle, and things that are affected by money are affected by our sex, the fact that we are female. The kinds of leadership positions that you get in a firm, or whether you get a leadership position or not, are affected by the fact that we are female. So I think that we're talking as professionals, and we are, you know, in the spirit of not dwelling in all of the things that we don't have. We're just talking about them as if we're practitioners and explaining how we see the world falling out for us. But I think that we have to remember that there are still challenges that we have to work on, and that there are things that we need to overcome, right? And that it's not something that women can do alone. Women need men to understand that. And I think that in a profession like architecture, especially the whole thing of life balance is a challenge for everyone, because it's one of, I mean, how many professions do you have where, you know, you really work into the night? You do it in school, you get out of school, you're charetting on the job, your proposals, you're going into the night. That working long hours is like just a custom, it's a habit, it's a tradition. You know, how many professions are the people, male or female, working that many hours? And so I think that for me, it's not just that, yes, we want to improve the situation for, you know, for women and for minorities, but there are some things that need to be improved in the profession for the sake of all people working in the profession. And so we should look at all of them.
Great. I wrote a piece called Guess Who's Coming to Teach? It dealt with the lack of Afro-American teachers in academia. And I'll ask you the question, how many African-American female instructors do you have in architecture school? And how do you think it had an impact not having that?
Well, I went to Howard, so it was at an all-black school, but I think that the lack of female professors still had an effect. But it was a time when I didn't even realize that effect, you know. It was before Women's Lib, and so it was like a time when I just accepted that, yes, all the faculty were men. I didn't really question it. And it was only, I think, after I graduated and I saw a photograph of, I was in a photograph of a reception that we had after a lecture series, that it occurred to me that I never saw a woman, black or white, as a person who came to our school in 5 years as a lecturer. And then the other thing that struck me about this photograph is that all of the women in the school were serving the punch and the cookies, and the male students who worked on setting up the seminars would go to the airport or go to the train station and pick up the visitors, and they'd hang out with the visitors before they did their seminars. So there are things about when you can eliminate the race factor and still have some very serious sex discrimination issues going on that you still have to deal with. And so I think that, yes, there should be more faculty who are women, and I think more black women should be represented in the faculty. And I think that all of those things also help, especially if we're talking about motivating black students. And
thank you for a wonderful discussion. My name is Paul Chagombe. My question is, have you had to fire a client midway through a project? And what was the reason for that?
Midway through a project.
to fire your just say to fire your client.
Yes, have you had
to leave.
Fire a client midway
to
through
quit.
a project?
Mm.
And what was the reason for that?
You mean to quit a client?
Yeah,
Because,
fire the client.
okay.
No, we've said, no, I've never had to do that. We've said no to projects to clients because of, not agreeing with them or them having a history of something else that had nothing to do with us. But never during a project.
When I asked for our bill, we've done it twice.
Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't pay the money.
Okay, well, all right.
She did, I did.
Well, I'm going to ask this one last wrap-up question for tonight's discussion. If you guys had to send out a tweet about tonight's discussion, what would be your takeaway message for tonight that you would want everyone to take away from tonight?
140 characters.
Or less.
Okay.
Control your career, control your path. I don't ask questions. Be proactive. I don't know. Email me.
Good enough. Ivenue. Okay.
Had fun, met new people, provided some advice.
So our tweet is to them.
Oh, I
right?
didn't
Our
know
tweet
that.
is to- Okay, so, okay.
To everybody that is following.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay. I guess I would say, okay, hard questions, short answers, work on it yourself.
Hashtag this could be.
I love it. We're trending. Well, ladies, thank you. This has been great. I've loved having you. Thank you for coming out tonight. And we're going to wrap up tonight's discussions.
And thank you for organizing this. She really did she blew up my email and she called, but she saw that it was appropriate and you did it in a very professional way. And I need somebody like you to my office.
Thank you.
I could ask say one thing. I'm seeing a lot of young men here, and I'm not sure if we answered your questions or what we said. If you can relate to it, hopefully you can, because a lot of what we've gone through has nothing to do, as Carl probably said, has nothing to do, well, it has a lot to do with women, but it has more to do also with architecture and architects. And so we hope that we have also provided some insight to the profession from your perspective as well.
Thank you guys very much. All right, so Garfield and I are going to intrude on this wonderful panel of ladies here, if we'll be allowed so briefly. But we just wanted to thank this wonderful panel. It's been an incredible amount of knowledge and information given today, and I hope everyone kind of has a feel for the value that's been brought forth here. So just wanted to thank you guys again. It's been an incredible evening, and we just wanted to call up our executive board to give you guys a gift of our appreciation for your time tonight. As you all know, that this is Ms. Stephanie Harris, Secretary of NOMA Atlanta. I'm Brian Hauser, past president, NOMA Atlanta. This is Letitia Beard, our treasurer that doesn't let us spend a dime that's not authorized. And this is Garfield Peart, our president extraordinaire. So first up, we have a wonderful crystal vase for Ms. Dina Griffin.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I can go down. I think oh, yes, I do.
And it reads, NOMA Atlanta honors Miss Dina Griffin.
Okay.
Of course, as you guys know, Dina came in from Chicago and will be heading back tomorrow, but came in especially for this event. So Dina, I've been trying to get you down here for a minute,
I know
so I appreciate you coming. All right, next up we have Miss Ivenue Love-Stanley. Ivenue, as you guys know, is the 2014 Whitney M. Young Jr. Award winner. So we are very proud of Miss Ivenue for her accomplishments and her years of achievements. Next, Ms. Patrise Perkins-Hooker, another distinguished member of our panel. Patrise is currently the president of the Georgia Bar Association. So this is actually her second go-round with the panel. Last year she was actually being honored. So thank you, Patrise, for honoring your promise in that sense. Next, Ms. Roberta Washington. FAIA, Harlem, New York, very instrumental in the work going on there as well as her practice. So thank you, Roberta, for coming from New York. And I think we have one more. Stephanie doesn't know we're doing this, but it takes a lot of work, not only to yeah, I know, hiding from us, not only to put on an event like this, but also to moderate. And you may not know, Stephanie might have been a little nervous tonight, but did she do a good job? What you guys think? Yeah, did a good job. Good job. Thank you. No, and we love her and we thank her for everything that she does. So certainly, as a token of our appreciation, we want to give Stephanie a little gift. Totally surprised. It wasn't in the budget, but we put it in the budget. All right. So thank you very much, and I'll hand it back over to Brian.
All right. So with that, we would like to, before we wrap up, we just want to make sure that we thank all of the wonderful sponsors that helped us tonight. We'd like to thank Georgia Tech College of Architecture, once again, one of our great partners. Thank you guys for everything you do. We would also like to thank the Second Me Concierge sponsorship. And Macgregor Associates Architects. Spotlight Farm and Ranch Services. Clement and Wynn Program Managers. CDH Partners. And Collins Digital Imaging. All right, so that is wraps up our thank yous, and I want to thank our board and Stephanie again and our illustrious panel. And before we wrap up, just wanted to give you guys a heads up about a couple of upcoming events for NOMA. They are included in your programs, so keep in mind. Next up, the next event is going to be on November the 13th. It's going to be at Specialty Tile at Miami Circle. They're going to host a wonderful reception and CEU display for us. It's going to be all about facades and what you can do with facades and tile. So we're looking forward to that. And then also mark your calendars for our annual holiday party on Monday, December 15th. We'll be at Cat's Cafe. It's become a bit of a annual event for us. We have a lot of fun. So it's not a CEU, but it's a time for us to just kind of sit back and reflect and enjoy all of the hard work that you guys have done.
All right. And this year we'll be doing a special awards portion of the holiday party. So we'll be recognizing not only the achievements of 2014, but certainly the historical achievements of our past presidents and just folks who have ensured that we continue to provide the level of programming that we have this year. So the final note would be to fill out your comment cards, please. There's some more programs in the back. If you didn't get a comment card, you can get it in the back. But it's important for us to get that level of feedback. So what did you think about tonight? Was it good? Good? That's what's up. All right. Well, with that said, why don't you close us out, Miss Stephanie?
Well, for me personally, this has been a fantasy come true. I mean, I've been following Roberta, like I said, since the beginning of my career, and I've met Dina recently just through conversations, email, stalking. And, I finally reached with Ivenue last week and we chatted up, and I heard wonderful things about you from numerous people, and I got to speak to Miss Patrise at various times as well, too, catching her at awkward moments, coming and running. But tonight has been great for me, and I loved and adored all of you, and I am truly blessed and honored to have you all come and all of you be here and see this experience and enjoy it. Well, thank you guys.